All right, so this is two parts to the job we're doing for the maple. We're doing the root collar excavations plus aeration with amending with compost. So the part of the root collar excavations is to expose the root flare, at the soil grade, and then remove any girdling roots that are around the tree. And we'll know we're done if we can see a complete flare and all the roots that are showing are completely removed and we have an exposed root flare. Second part of that is the aeration, and it really depends on what the job is spec for. In this case, it's 8 feet. We're doing a radius of 8 feet. So to get that, we'll go to the tree, and my pace is 6 feet, but you could still do it by foot length. So this is going to be our 8 feet mark. So we're going to take all the pine straw that's here right now, and we're going to rake it back here all the way around, and then that's going to be our working area. And we're going to leave the pine straw there for the time being. So after we're done, we're going to make it part of this bed, kind of like I did over there. Just then we'll tidy up, clean up after that. A residential backyard, and all we have is lawn or whatnot. You wouldn't have to worry about the soil screen too much. But what's also nice about them, if you're working in an area you don't want to get the soil displaced too much, it keeps it into a contained area. However you set them up, you can do a complete circle, right around you to keep the soil right there, so you don't have to. So then you can rake it around and do what you need to with it. Or if you have to haul it off, it's all in one spot, so that way you can just shovel it into a wheelbarrow and move it off. But in this instance, we're in a commercial setting. Hardscape all around us. So we're using them for twofold. One, to keep the dirt from, making a mess, and second, for the public. We're trying to keep it contained so the soil's not going to impact the public too much. So we'll set those up.
Alrighty.
But they're, homemade, customizable, PVC to length. Cut them however long you want to. Drill the holes. We get the screens, sent to us that we can get them as long as we want or as tall as we want. So we spec them for this size, and that way all you have to do is with the grommets in them is just zip tie them to the holes, and then you have your customized soil nets. So we have the metal rod spikes. So we'll drive the first one in where we'll start our screen, which we'll do it right here. Set that one in first. That way you'll know the length of the next one, where to put it. Stretch it out. We'll set the next one right about there. Let you do the next one. Yep. There we go. And now the extras, basically we won't really need those, but what those are for is if you have to put an angle in it or a bend, you could use those to set in the middle and then run an angle. So we won't need those. we could tell you what, we'll put one in to make this one up against the fencing a little more. Voila. All right. Let's next step is we're going to set the compressor up, the air hoses. We'll go ahead and do that and talk about it when we're down there. All right, we're only going to need one. Excuse me, one at the compressor. Now. These are called safety whip checks, and we're gonna. You'll notice that there's one on either end of the air hose, which each length of hose is 50 feet. So that's all. You can always remember how how far you need to go to the length from the compressor to the tree you're doing. How many air hoses you're going to need? They're 50 feet each. And like I said, on each end, there's a safety whip check. And what this is for is wherever you make the connection from the air hose to the compressor or from hose to hose, if something happened and the ends came off, there's these to hold them in place to keep, because it's high pressure air, so they could go, much force whipping around, and to get hit with one of these in the face is not a good day. How you use it is these are spring loaded. Just pull that back, make you a big enough a loop to put around there, and then it just self closes. And you want to line up these ferrules here to the space between here and there. Push it in, the rubber grommets, push those against one another, and then turn. And that's in place. So now we'll walk this out that way and then connect it up until we get to the tree. So the brand name air spade, or there's air knife or whatnot, but the air gun itself is what's our main tool for the work performed, and the air running through it. The main working part is this nozzle. That's what delivers the spiraled in the end here, and that's what delivers the high powered air at the very end. I mean, just as far as cubic feet or minute, it's just thousands of pounds. So it displaces the soil without actually harming the roots, so we can expose what we need to. Good tool, very important. All right, and there's a pin here, just connected at the very end here, and I guess it does somewhat of a good job of holding it in. All right, so we're about ready to blast some dirt away from the tree. All right, we're gonna go turn the compressor on. And you got your hose out. You wanna, I mean, hopefully nobody will trip on it, but at least the cone will let them know that it's here. Keep it over the air hose. All right, and starting the air compressor, Now, if it's cold out, it's got the instructions on here for cold starting. Like I told you this morning, that you turn it on, depress this button for 30 seconds, release it, and then crank it all the way on. Hold it till it gets up to, what is that, 500, at the 500 bar here, where it says 5, but times 100, so that's the 500 bar. Let it go, and if it's cold, you need to keep the air or the valves open until it warms up, and it's going to take about 2 or 3 minutes to warm up, and then you can close the valves. But when it's warm out, you won't really need to do that. So the first step, valves open, turn it on, and then your PPE for your ears, very loud. Open, air spade's ready to go. All right, before I start blasting air, to know where you get you really don't know where the stopping point is at first until you start, blowing the air around, and you don't know how far you're going to come back because you don't know what's under there yet. I know for a fact there's going to be girdling roots. How much there are, I don't know yet. Till you uncover it. So we're gonna blow all the way around, uncover it as much as we can at first, stop, look and see what we got. All right, ear protection back on, face screen. Always check around you before you start, okay? Make sure there's nobody walking by. Directly over where I want to direct the air, and that's going to force the air straight down, but the soil's going to come right up at you. So you can kind of direct the soil where you want to go. If you go more at an angle, it's going to like deflect, and it's going to shoot the soil, like off at an angle. So you really don't want to do that at first because it's going to blow it where you don't want it to go. You want to kind of go right directly over it first.
Up a little bit.
Yeah. When you see that, you know it's going to be bad. All this right here, that's all adventitious roots right here. It's just one big root mat, and this is what we're getting rid of. These roots here have taken advantage of the situation as far as the loose soil up top, so they're growing in this environment, but we don't need them. We don't need them above the flare of the tree. We need to get rid of all this to try to expose the flare as much as possible. So this is going to be a difficult one, similar to that one, and we got to get rid of this layer and then see what we have. I mean, we hadn't even encountered the big girdling roots yet. All right, I'll show you the tools for that. So this is our root collar toolbox, and in it we keep our hand pruners. We got extra blades for the sawzall for cutting. We have our cutting tools, which we'll use chisels to cut roots. We have the loppers to cut roots if need to be, and a handsaw. But what's better than the handsaw is the sawzall, because it does all the work for you. The reciprocating saw, you know, it does a great job of cutting the big roots. But one of the best tools for getting rid of that root mat for the adventitious roots is this. We've adapted this. This is basically a linoleum knife or a flooring knife, and we've adapted it for cutting through these roots, and it does a good job. So there's really no skill to this, because we don't need these. You don't have to be careful about it. It's just basically getting in here. You keep a tarp on site, and then put all your roots that you cut on it, and it's a lot easier to take back to. We use a wheelbarrow then. But it's one of the worst. It's basically a mature red maple, so you really would like to do this procedure before it gets to be a mature tree, because the bigger the tree gets, the bigger the girdling roots are. So in saying that, that means the tree has been in decline for a while, with most likely large girdling roots pressing up against the root flare, which is detrimental for the tree. I mean, when you got that much pressure against the root flare, that's disrupting, you know, translocation through the tree. You know, water, nutrients have a harder time getting up in the tree. Imagine like a straw and a drink, and you're taking a sip and you press the straw and you can't get the full amount because you have constriction. So it's basically the same thing with a girdling root against the tree. So no, this is not ideal or typical of a tree. We like to get them a little small, you know, a lot younger, because the smaller and younger they are, of course, the easier it is to do, and then the tree is not as stressed as a mature tree. But you know, this is a unique situation into that we're trying to, you know, do what's right for the tree. So, but that means a lot more work's involved to get to the problem at first. We got to go through the mat of adventitious roots, probably blow more soil away to see what else is, probably another layer of roots we have to get to before we can even start to see the root flare. There's like, you know, that's a large root right there that most likely is going to have to be removed. You can see right here how it's going to, I mean, you know, that's well above soil grade. We haven't even started to see the root flare yet, and here we got a large root that's like right up against the tree. Yeah, so I mean, all this has to be removed. So you can't, there is a rule of thumb about taking too much at one time. You know, where's the stopping point? It's almost like you know, the pruning of a tree and the canopy. You don't want to take too much, or you're going to harm the tree. It doesn't do the tree any good and the canopy if it doesn't have enough limbs or foliage to support the upper growth of the tree. Same goes for here. Yeah, we have to remove all of this, but you know, believe it or not, some of these roots are, you know, still working in symbiosis with the tree. It's like, because if you take too much, you know, then the tree could really, it could stress the tree out basically. So we got to get to a point to be like, all right, how much do we need to remove? What's a stopping point? And the twin tree about 20 yards that way is a good example of I had to stop. I couldn't go any further. the Sawzall. That way when I go another round with the, yep. Have you put one of these blades in before? All right. Basically, there's a lever right here that you press down all the way, and then there's a button on the side that you press in, and it sits down in there sometimes. There it goes. And you just close that door right there, and it's in. Yep, locks in.
Cut these girdling roots back. Is there a rule of thumb of how close to the base of the tree you want to be?
Yeah, you'll see all that when we expose more of it. There's going to be several steps. It's a trophy. All right, now that we got a good, we got rid of the first mat. So we got now we can see a lot of the bigger roots right here. All right, now cutting the big ones, what I try to do is cut not towards the trunk of the tree, but back here, and start removing that way. So you're left with some of the roots against the trunk. That way you can see if you can actually physically remove them from the trunk of the tree without harming the tree, because you don't want to pull the bark off if you can help it. But if they do happen to be fused to the stem of the trunk, what you can do is basically to terminate that girdling root is you still want an attractive cut, because you need to, the client needs to look at it. So you're gonna, you cut it close and sever it that way, remove it. That way there's not any more nutrients or anything going toward the girdling root, so it's terminated, it can't grow anymore. So eventually, over the course of a year or two, that actually girdling root will die. That way it may actually physically fall off the trunk itself, or you can remove it a lot easier. But you still want to leave it on the tree without causing harm to it. Right. So we have to do that all the way around, remove what we can, and repeat the process again, because remember, our goal is to try to expose the root flare, and we haven't even seen that yet. Your first day on video for training is the worst tree you'll probably see.
Well, possibly though. Starting with the worst.
Yeah. Yeah. What's funny is it's happened that way with a couple of other past trainees. Is like
that's how you find out if someone's going to push their
But the thing is though, is like once you learn the aspects of this, an easier tree will be far more easier to deal with.
I'm sure it'll be a lot easier to correct, because
this right here is, I'm not going to say impossible, but very difficult to correct, to bring back to a natural flare, because it's, like I said, it's a mature tree. It's been going on, It's been growing this way for, I mean, however long the building's been here. Easily 30 years or more. I mean, these trees are probably 40 years old, I'm guessing. And they'd be bigger if they didn't have the constriction of the girdling roots going on. You know what I mean? They have a lot going on with them. These trees were actually topped at one point too.
How can you tell that?
Well, if you look about 20 feet up in the tree, you see where all the little decay pockets are.
Yeah.
The little holes, and you see the kind of where those knuckles are. You can tell that's where they were cut before, and then they sprouted back in those little like fingers, as it were. And you can see right about the same height, they all have those knuckles. So that's where they were topped, and then the new growth formed out right there. You can see there's much more defined taper right where those knuckles are going up into the, and they're growing almost straight up. That's not a natural branch attachment. And that's way on both trees. So they've definitely been topped before.
I don't know. I saw like where the flare, instead of being like this, it'll be like one side will be flat,
Yep.
and that makes it more prone to like.
That's what's going on with that tree. There is no more flare. It's compressed for so long.
It's just kind of.
Yeah, that's what I talked to Basil about on Monday. I wanted him to come by and look at it and be like, there's no natural flare anymore. We're not going to find one because of the girdling roots have been there so long. It's actually a part of the tree. So unfortunately, I have a feeling that's what we're going to find here. We're just going to have to get to a point where we're just going to have to stop. This big old root mass right here, we're not going to try to tackle that all at once. What we need to do is like start like you'd be pruning a tree where you see laterals or whatnot, is like start taking sections, dissecting it right here, removing that, and start making cuts where then we'll see what we have underneath it. So we need to start trying to get rid of all this stuff on top right now. So we could do that with the Sawzall. I'll let you start making some cuts with the Sawzall, and then loppers taking the small stuff on top, and then we'll get the air spade and clean it up again, and then see what we have from there. We just need to try to get to a stopping point.
Okay.
And once we get to that stopping point, then the rest of the job's actually going to go pretty quick. And this is we're going to do several more trees as well. I mean, not today, but to be able to have you competent out on your own doing these, I'm going to do several more with you, because this is extreme, as you're going to see. I want to be with you actually doing some what I would call basic trees that you'd see normally.
Okay.
That depends. Once we take these top roots off, I'm going to blow it out again to get some more of that loose soil away from it, and we'll see what we got. First of all, I want to see if we can find the flare or get to that stopping point. And then if we're left with kind of a bowl, then I will probably go out and try to taper it out a little more, similar to the other tree, and then clean it up there to make it look good aesthetically. But you really don't want to. You want to be able to have the flare match the surrounding grade around it. So that's really the determining factor. So you don't want to you don't want to left Matt. You don't want to leave like a bowl, as it were, because then water can collect in there and then yeah. So you want to be able to like taper it out a little bit. I do know that this one right here is coming from this. See, I already tried to cut it right here. This coming from that girdling root, so that's why I terminated it right here when I was talking about termination. Mm-hmm. So we'll definitely want to get rid of that one. Yeah, but once I made that cut, I couldn't feel it move anywhere, so kind of at a stopping point. big roots, we're not going to be able to cut. So what we're going to have to do, now a lot of these small roots that are going over the girdling roots, we can take off. And that's what we're going to try to correct now, is make clean cuts. Everything over it comes off. Yeah, all the small stuff comes off. Now we're working in layers. We're getting rid of the small stuff, and then we can see what we can remove after that. All right, so right now we want to try to leave big stuff. Leave it alone. Try to take all the small stuff on top of it. And when we get the roots like this, it's going to be like a pruning cut. We're going to cut at a nice clean angle to remove stuff off the top. So then like I said, we're going to work in layers now. Start getting the small stuff until we get to a stopping point. Be like, all right, is that all we can take now? Make sense? Yeah. Okay. Because we've exposed most of this right here, and we know we're going to leave some of the larger roots, we just know we're not going to cut them. I mean, it's going to stress the tree out too much. So this basically has defined how far out we're going to stop. And we got rid of all the roots on top. We're at a good stopping point. We can kind of clean this up. We can't remove any more of this. Now we'll focus on the other side. We have to leave the really big roots on this side, and if they don't have really big roots on the other side, and we can safely remove those, then we will remove them. But so to answer your question, at this point, it really doesn't matter. I mean, you know, aesthetics is part of it, but it's really more for our goal is the health of the tree. And believe it or not, we're going to get this really tidy when we're all done, because it's going to look like part of the tree after we're done. We're going to take some of the soil and layer it back into here, just so it looks like it's sitting on top of the soil. It will look presentable. But to get rid of this piece is I'm on you know, make just like a pruning cut, but I'm going to chisel it right into here.
Okay.
And then we could kind of hopefully see what else is going on under here, because we want to try to get rid of this. This is a mess.
So why use a chisel?
Because I can't get the sawzall in there.
Okay. I didn't know if there was more to it.
And just one of the tools we can utilize, and this is the right time to utilize this one, because you really can't, you know, get there's no you could go this way with it, but I have a feeling that the tip of the saw is going to bounce off the bark. So it's almost like doing a wedge, starting it out, because you're not going to be able to go all the way through it. So you just keep going, making wedges. And then when you got your wedge, then you'll be able to get that out of the way. Then you'll be able to set it in there and go a little deeper and work that way. Wedge it again. Boom. And we'll be able to clean it up. All right. All right, so we got, this is still fused against this. what the negative impacts of a girdling root is?
It is constricting like the root flare or root collar, so in turn is restricting like all your nutrients going up into the tree from the roots.
All right, so part of the root flare is part of the root collar. The root collar is basically the engine of the tree, really, because that's where all the, that's where all the activity takes place as far as the moving up, moving down of water and nutrients. That's why when we inject, do like micro injections with the drill and the tree IV system. That's why we put it into the root flare, because it's pulled up quicker that way.
So you can drill right into it and it doesn't hurt the tree?
I personally don't like doing it, but it's also the quickest healing part of the tree as well, so they say after a year it basically closes completely up. And without doing more, since this is the only tree you've done so far, without doing more of them, you got basically the gist of the tools that we use, the setup and all that. So that's really the easy part, is using the tools. Getting more experience actually doing the root collars is where you're going to need to do some more of them.